It's time to prep my engine bay for paint. I'll cover cutting the clutch master cylinder hole, the manual brake hole, some dimple dyeing, installing a 4th generation coolant overflow, and then stripping and prepping the metal for paint. To start, we need to cut a hole for the clutch master cylinder. Since my car was originally an automatic, it doesn't have the hole. The stud is in the way and will need to be ground down. I used a center punch to mark the middle of the stud and then drilled out the stud. Man, I'm good. Look at this. Dead center. And the rest of the stud is ground flush with the firewall. Now to the clutch master cylinder. This is a tick master cylinder for a 4th generation Camaro. I cut out a template for the mounting flange, then recorded some measurements and angles for the install. I put the template on the firewall to see how it would fit. The manual transmission pedal box for a 3rd gen has 2 support rods for the clutch master cylinder holes. Unfortunately, the pedals that I bought were missing 1 rod. I put some tape on the firewall and marked out where I wanted the clutch master hole to be. I measured the hole distances and traced them on the other side of the firewall. For fitment purposes, I removed the master cylinder rod. These holes seem to work. The master cylinder doesn't hit the strut towers or the frame rails. With the fitment verified, I started by drilling some tiny pilot holes. I removed my brake master cylinder and steering column to make more room. Go ahead and drill the holes to full size. I used a few different size drill bits and finished up with a reamer. The holes lined up really well, and the master cylinder fits exactly how I want. I put some plastic on the other side of the firewall to block metal shavings from flying into the car. Start with the pilot hole and then hog out the metal. I used a 3/4 inch hole cutter for this. My new Dremel is used to make a few cuts, followed by a carbide cutter. Keep removing material until the hole lines up with the clutch master cylinder. It looks like everything worked well. The temporary clutch rod is at the correct angle and everything lines up. Remove the master cylinder and then deburr the holes. Vacuum up any metal shavings. And now it's manual brake time. Put the manual brake plate on the firewall and mark the rod hole. This notch needs to be put in the firewall to clear the higher pin location of a manual brake setup. A cutoff wheel and a carbide bit makes quick work of it. Some quick deburring, and it's done. Since my battery box is a tad rusty, I coated it in some rust converter. After letting it set, I sprayed it down with water to stop the reaction. I'll be installing a 4th gen coolant overflow. It's a compact unit that will free up room in my engine bay. To start, I made a cutting template from paper, then eyeballed where it should go in the battery tray. I marked out my lines and started cutting. A decent amount of fine trimming was necessary to get it to fit just right. Make sure to go slow and check the fitment often. This little plastic tab is cut off. And the overflow fits. I'll come up with the mounting holes a little bit later on, but it's good enough for now. Unbolt the 2 wiper arm mounts. Remove any windshield supports. Since I'll be doing a lot of paint stripping, I covered the windshield in plastic and plugged up any holes with some masking tape. I used my trusty 3M powered respirator, but a normal face shield and other PPE works just as well. And remember, a wire wheel will occasionally shoot out metal, so you need to protect your face. Start stripping the paint, and keep on going, and going, and going. This was a rather boring process and quite the back killer. I think I had some tire to fender contact from last race season, so I'll be cutting the fender pinch welds just a little bit. I cut right below the spot welds to avoid weakening the fenders. A flapper wheel gets the edges nice and smooth. I ran a fusion pass with my welder to strengthen the metal that I just cut, but it didn't really do anything. More paint is stripped off the firewall. Next up, dimple dyeing. Drill a pilot hole for the hole saw, and then cut out the hole. And this hole saw sucked and made a crappy hole, so I had to use a Dremel to clean out the hole just a little bit. Strip the paint from the top and bottom of the hole. I picked a 1-inch dimple die for this. So this kit is meant for a hydraulic tool, but I just used a giant bolt and nut instead. Place a dimple die above and underneath the hole. Then use a big impact gun to dimple the hole. And the finished result looks great. And go ahead and repeat the process on any areas that you think should or can be dimple dyed. I did this mostly for looks and because I wanted to. Although now coolant leaks won't puddle underneath the radiator support. And one of the final steps is to clean the bare metal. Apply body filler to areas that might show through the paint. I used filler over my plug welds, on factory spot welds, some wrinkles in the metal, or any area that was uneven. I didn't go crazy here because I'll be using a textured paint, and that paint will hide a lot of the imperfections. After the filler dries, go ahead and sand it down. Spray off any dust and clean every metal surface that you can get access to. Once you think it's clean, hit it again. I painted my rusty battery tray with some Por 15 to avoid rust from getting through the final paint. Next up is taping off the engine bay. This process takes a while but is critical to get a good end result. Tape, tape, and tape some more. My DIY paint booth was just clear plastic that was hung from my ceiling. In hindsight, I really needed an exhaust system of some sort, but a little late now. So here it is, the finished prepped engine bay. In the next video, we'll cover the painting of the engine bay. And spoiler alert, looks really good. And as always, remember to subscribe and follow me on Instagram for more awesome content.